Okay, I will call the Southbury Board of Selectmen special meeting, April 22nd, 2021, to order at 7 PM. Could we have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You have your reports in front of you. Next up is the consent agenda. Can I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Made and second. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
I would like to pull out the POCD recommendation for the consultant as a discussion item for a bit.
Made and seconded to remove the Planning Commission POCD consultant recommendation. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It carries. Can I have a call the vote on the rest of the consent agenda? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it carries. So we'll open for discussion the Planning Commission recommendation of the Plan of Conservation and Development.
I had a few questions about that. I was curious as to what the other bids look like. I saw the cost from Malone McBroom. I don't know, I think there were 4 total bids, and I was curious to know what those bids were. And I'm also curious as to why there was a delay in getting the bids to the planning department people, the planning commission people, when other departments had received those quotes perhaps weeks prior.
The Planning Commission did get there was no holdup on them getting it at the proper time. They did get it. As far as the bids go, I don't have the bids in front of me. I can table that action to get those bid numbers. One was, I think, 17,000, which was extremely low and really wouldn't cover the Plan of Conservation and Development. And one was, I think, 75,000. We don't have those, do we, Betsy?
I do not, Jeff.
Do not. Okay.
Jeff, can you clarify when you're saying there's not a delay? My understanding is that Board of Finance reviewed the RFPs at least back in February. I don't know how much sooner, but.
The Board of Finance, to my knowledge, did not.
Can I finish, please? And then it wasn't until March 24th that the RFPs were sent to planning. So that's, over a month discrepancy. How come it wasn't sent to them at the same time that it was sent to the Board of Finance?
It was not sent to the Board of Finance.
Well, it's in the minutes of strategic planning that John Riley said that the Board of Finance reviewed the RFPs.
I have no idea.
Either way, I think that's still a delay. We're talking about, they came in December 18th and it doesn't get to them until March 24th. Why such a,
It's like a 3-month delay or more.
why such a long time before?
Yeah, it seems odd.
That's just, I was curious.
I don't believe it was sent to the Board of Finance. There was no official sending, recall that being sent to the Board of Finance.
Why was it,
You'd have to ask John Riley.
why 3 months though before it was sent to planning?
It was sent once we were, planning was, we were getting it reviewed by the person who was in planning. Kathy Castaneda was doing a review to make recommendations to the Planning Commission. Kathy resigned. We got our new planning people in, and at that point, the COG planner reviewed it also, and it was sent to planning. So what I'll do is I'll have the other bids, I thought the bids were in here. You can see the other bids.
Yeah, it's a big expenditure. I'd like to see what the other people were bidding.
It is within it is within the
The budget?
budget line item, yeah.
I think it'd be good to see the proposals though, because, I mean, I know it's in the line items, but it's still a big expenditure.
Yeah, we can approve it on May sixth. But do you have the recommendation by the,
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen that. But it doesn't break out the bids. It doesn't say who the other bidders were. I was curious if NVCOG was one of the bidders, or did they?
no, MVCOG
They
did not bid on this. They gave the recommendation, one of the referrals of it.
I think
Jason?
I think it makes sense to put, unless there's some urgency, to push it off to the
No.
next meeting so we could see the metric. I'll just note that the recommendation we have does indicate that planning met a couple times. Like, is there any concern from my fellow selectmen that the planning committee to review? It said they interviewed everybody. I just want to understand, a timing issue, or is there some other concern that, just so I can understand it in evaluating this when it comes up next time?
I don't have any concern with their recommendation, I just think that whenever we've gotten a bid before, we've always seen a breakout. I mean, I think a lot of times stuff coming from, Public Works, we get to see the bid package.
No, I completely agree with you, and the first thing I said was that I agree with that. I'm talking about your other concern about timing. Is there some concern that planning didn't have sufficient opportunity to review it and interview people and do their jobs on it, and made a recommendation? So I'm just trying to understand the other concern that you guys have presented.
No, I've never said that there's any concern with their timing of them being able to make this recommendation.
Okay.
That's not all that I've asked or pointed out.
The comment I had from a member of the planning commission, I won't mention any names, was that there was a delay between the proposals coming from an office and then them getting their proposals. So why that was.
I think it would be concerning if other boards and commissions were getting this and planning was not. So if that was the case, then yeah, that would be concerning to me. I don't have any concern over their timing to review or interview.
Proposals in here. Maybe somebody from planning should come in and discuss why they chose Malone over the others. I mean, I haven't seen the others, so I don't know.
Well, the planning commission has written
I've
a
seen that.
recommendation,
I've
so.
seen it. But I'd
that's
like
their-
to hear their justifications if they're willing to do that, if anyone else wants to hear it. If not, then don't bring them in.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes of April 1st, 2021, and April 7th, 2021. Any discussion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries. This is the property at 864 South Britton Road. It's a meeting, which we'd like to do for May 6th at 6:30 before the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
And Justin will second it. Any discussion?
I have a question. If anyone else has a question, they're certainly welcome to go first.
Go ahead, George.
I saw a comment from a member of the Board of Finance after this vote to approve the monies. They were asking if the property could be purchased as regular town property and not just as permanent open space. And my answer was that I don't know how that works. I don't know if there's a difference in the process between buying a piece of property that's just designated as town property versus one that's designated as permanent open space, or if there's any financial, or just to buy it as town property. What would be the difference between permanent open space
The money
and
would have
town
to come out of
property?
a property as discussed and agreed at the discussions at the Board of Finance. Number one, it's up to the Board of Selectmen to determine whether permanent open space and property. But also, this is a connector to a lot of other open space. That's one of the reasons it was ranked as high as it was to make that connection, that corridor complete. So I think that's why this was recommended to be, and that was the RUPAC recommendation, was for permanent open space.
I understand all that. I'm just curious as to what the difference is if the town was to purchase it as a regular piece of town property versus something that's designated as permanent open space. Is there a difference?
Yes,
What is the difference?
if it's permanent open space, it cannot be used for any other purposes. If it's town property, there are town properties that have been purchased that could be used for example, up on East Flat Hill, there's town property up there that is not, is owned just town property. It's not open space. They're cornfields now. But if you should decide to put in soccer fields up there, you can do that. That's one example. There's other open space that you can put, or town-owned property that you can put, if you wanted to build a building on it, if you wanted to do, build public works on it. An example of town-owned property like that is Exit 15.
No, I think I understand all that. I'm just wondering, seeing that the future is difficult to predict sometimes, and this property is right on 172, from what I understand, it's South Britain Road. Would it make a difference if the place was, if we purchased it as just town property, and then 50 years from now, if somebody says, okay, we want to do something else with that particular piece of land, or maybe just a part of that piece of land, would that be a wiser choice for this particular property going forward?
I think on this particular piece of property, the reason why it's recommended for purchase by the town and by RUPAC is to make the connection as permanent open space, passive recreation, is because of the corridor from Platt Park. This makes the connection between Platt Park and you go across 172, there's a road there that leads down to the bent of the river open space, and which was the old Tappy property, then across to bent of the river to make a continuous corridor, which is part of our plan of conservation and development, is to make those connections.
No, I understand the value of the property in that sense. It does connect nicely to some other open space type properties. My question is, why buy a piece of property and then permanently designate it as open space if you don't have to? If it was just town property, couldn't you do the exact same things with it that you would do if it was called permanent open space? And I guess another question would be, if it is declared as permanent open space, is there a way in the future to undeclare it as permanent open space, or is it kind of locked in perpetuity as that?
If it's it would be, the money used to purchase this would come out of the open space line item.
Okay, so the only
So it would be
impact,
permanent open space.
the only impact would be which line item you pull the money out of on
Right.
the town reserves.
Right, and it's been the recommendation all along on this property to designate it as open space for passive recreation.
I'm not opposed to that. I mean, I think it's a good piece of property for that purpose, but let's say 100 years from now, something occurs that you'd want to use it for something else. Why lock yourself in? Why declare it as permanent open space if you can just call it town property, use it like open space, do the same things with it, but then have the flexibility in the future to do something else with it? I mean, I don't know, I can't say anything more about this. Anyone else have a comment?
I mean, the same could be said for any piece of open space in town. And I think one of the goals, at least as I understand this transaction, the way it's been presented to us, and just for the public's benefit, I'll mention that this isn't something that's just popping up at the Board of Selectmen tonight. We've had a number of meetings in executive session discussing the matter and providing the first selectman with parameters to negotiate it, and the premise has always been that it would be for open space. And then you get back into that discussion that we had a couple of years ago when you're talking about how you categorize open space in town and whether it's permanent open space or not permanent open space, and whether the property can be used towards the town goal or not towards the town goal, and there's all that involved. So I think the town has a policy on open space properties, and I think that given the location and, you know, how this property is situated, I sort of understood that to be the case of the purpose. But if we were gonna change our mind and not go down that path, I think this would have to go back to all the other commissions, because the planning commission approved it on that basis as being in compliance with the goals of the POCD and, for open space property in town.
I think also this property, when it was ranked, part of it was the vistas and the ledges and the views, the watershed, and the connectivity of the trails and that whole piece. So when you look at the topography of this, even to think that you might change it to be used, like up on East Flat Hill, they're pretty flat fields. You can make them into soccer fields. This would be a very difficult property to do anything other than passive recreation with. So I think that's part of the reason, and that's was reflected, I think, in the appraisal. Justin, do you have something?
Yeah, let me see. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, when I look at this piece of land, to me, it, not thinking as a selectman, thinking as a realtor, who works with some investors and developers, this is another great opportunity for somebody that's got quite a bit of money in their pocket to expand the number of 830G buildings in our town. It's very rare to see a situation where you have sewer, water, and natural gas converging on one lot in this town. And, those are expensive connections to make. But that said, how many of those 14-unit buildings could one put into a 40-acre lot? It's a big number, even with the steeps that are present on the land. So I think from that perspective, not only are we achieving a goal that RUPAC has had for a long time, but we're also playing defense. We still don't have our affordable housing plan. We're wide open to 830G. I think, we spent $6 million to keep Volpe Rosen out of the hands of Toll Brothers. We're spending $239 on this. I think it's an absolute chip shot. And I do think that the character of the land renders it not useful for anything outside of dense development or passive recreation.
Emily, do you have something? I'll call the vote. All in favor of the resolution, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? And that carries. So we will set a date for Thursday, May 6th at 7 p.m. for the town meeting to do that.
Will that be before the Board of Selectmen meeting?
Yeah. It's in here, it's in at 7 p.m., so we'll just do it at 7 and then we'll start at 7. Okay. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? And it carries. Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Take care, Justin.